You know what time it is. You know what time it is.
How firm thy friendship. Oh,
you know what time it is. I'm brawl with them boys of the fall. You know what time it is. On the ground with a nose for the ball. You know what time it is. Blood, sweat, and them tears for this game. Leaving it all out on the field with no fear for you lames. Yeah, you know what time it is. Come brawl with them boys of the fall. Covered in gray and scarlet, massive. Stiff arms to your jaw, we breaking it. We sick of seeing you clowns with the crown, we taking it. Number one flaws, you don't know ball. We taking advantage of that. Got you Karens asking, where the manager at? With no cap, no time for the amateur rap. Look man, we got dogs all over the depth chart. Monsters on the roster, straighten up that posture. Rooting out you imposters. Silver bullets in the chamber, and a D-line full of danger. Step back when that linebacker trigger, when he pull it, it'll bang ya. Running backs running downhill, touchdown on your IG reel. Better check the stats, buddy, it's straight facts over how you feel. Whenever I speak, I'm giving you more balls than German Village, Short North, and High Street. And you know, the average Joe can do nothing with my flow. It's a waste. Somebody please give this brother an I.O. Come on.
I told y'all before, I need to feel y'all's energy. Stop sitting on y'all hands and get this place lit. Like I said, bring the energy.
Yeah, you know what time it is. I'm brawl with them boys of the fall. You know what time it is. On the ground with a nose for the ball. You know what time it is. Blood, sweat, and them tears for this game. Leaving it all out on the field with no fear for you lame. You know what time it is. I'm brawl with them boys of the fall. You know what time it is. On the ground with a nose for the ball. You know what time it is. Blood, sweat, and them tears for this game. Leaving it all out on the field with no fear for you lame. It's Buckeyes by a billion. We in the building with over 100,000. We represent from the uttermost to the public housing. And yes, the east side of Columbus raised me. Another pick six. Them BIA boys about to go crazy. Cause we don't play. Our wide receivers got your secondary shook, so they cook them like Bobby Flay. Hey, stay out of my way and trust me, cause I know it's OH. Somebody please give this brother an I.O. Come on.
They are not better than us. We're going to go out in this second half, and we're going to punch this ticket. We leaving everything out there on this field. This is it. What you going to be made of?
Yeah, you know what time it is. I'm brawl with them boys of the fall. You know what time it is. On the ground with a nose for the ball. You know what time it is. Blood, sweat, and them tears for this game. Leaving it all out on the field with no fear for you lame. You know what time it is. I'm brawl with them boys of the fall. You know what time it is. On the ground with a nose for the ball. You know what time it is. Blood, sweat, and them tears for this game. Leaving it all out on the field with no fear for you lame. You know what time it is. You know what time it is.
All right. What's good, everybody? What is good? I felt it was appropriate to start the song off. Start the pod off with the new joint. For those who haven't heard it, for those who maybe want to hear it again, and also a sort of a launching point to turn the page on coming off of that super disappointing loss to that team up north last week. It's time to go, y'all. We got our matchup. We know who our opponent is. Night game at the Shoe. Playoff game. History making. This has never happened. SEC team coming up north in the dead of the winter at night in the Shoe is just phenomenal. Funky, what's good, brother? What's up?
What's up, B. Moses? What a big day today for not just the Buckeyes, but for college football in general. Just the inaugural playoffs. Clearly, everyone's seeing the flaws now because sadly we got put into the death bracket of the side or the death bracket. But oh well, and only one step forward, and that's to win 4 games in a row. And those 4 games are going to be versus Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Georgia. So if the Buckeyes want to win it all, win the Natty, they're going to silence every single fan base in the country on the way to do so. So, hey, can't hate it because there's a lot of Buckeyes fans that were saying, oh, this Natty won't mean anything because we lost to Michigan, and there'll still be an asterisk. And, hey, maybe there would be an asterisk if we had to play SMU and then Arizona State and then Penn State and then beat Georgia in the Natty. Maybe there would be, but now absolutely not. We're going through, in my opinion, 4 of the top 6 teams in the country, and we're going to have to beat every single one of them to win the Natty. So if we do it, we do it. But hey, this is what we want. So our Buckeye team we'll be favorites in every single game. I'll tell you that right now. We're not going to be underdogs. That Oregon game will probably be pick 'em if I had to guess. And Georgia and Texas clearly not better than us. So we're gonna be up there on every single game. So I'm very excited. So and I'll be there in the shoe again versus Tennessee. So maybe that's good juju. Maybe that's bad juju. Who knows? But I'll be there. And if it's in the Rose Bowl, that's right next door to me. So I'll be there in the Rose Bowl too. So I'm with the Buckeyes 100% of the time, always 7 days a week. So hopefully Buckeye Nation can get behind us and get 8 p.m. Eastern start time. Can't ask for much more versus Tennessee. If we can't beat Tennessee at home at a night start time, then hey, then we just don't deserve it. So can't wait for the game. I think we match up really well against Tennessee, and I think having a young, inexperienced quarterback in Nico is going to really be the big downside for Tennessee because he's struggled on the road this whole entire year, and I don't see that changing versus our Buckeyes defense in this new Buckeyes team this year.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. I mean, let's just kind of dive into the disappointment of Penn State, being ranked over us or seated above us. I mean, I really wasn't tripping that much. I can understand the whole, hey, we beat them head to head at their place. We have the same amount of losses. I can see that argument for sure. But on the flip side, I can see the committee, they were trying to remain consistent with not, punishing teams for playing in their conference title. And so that kind of won the day. That kind of won things over for Penn State. And because their bracket is lovely. I mean, as far as, ease of bracket, they have the easiest bracket. I don't expect them to get through it. But they, having their pathway would have been nice. But like you said, there's no doubt if we were to, get through this bracket, nobody could really say anything because it's definitely brutal. I mean, it's a lot of opportunity though, but definitely not easy at all. So what you think about that? I know you were not feeling that draw or the seeding. How are you feeling now? Are you still feeling the same or how are you feeling?
I mean, the one thing I'll say is at least the committee was consistent. The worst thing they could have done was not punish Texas and don't punish Penn State and then punish SMU and put Bama over them. So I can say at least the committee was consistent what they did, and they put SMU in over Bama, and they didn't really punish, or they didn't punish at all, Texas and Penn State. But I think it's embarrassing that the committee lets teams have this easy of schedules and don't punish them for actually playing in their one hard game of the season. Penn State has played 2 hard games all year. Two games versus top 20 opponents all year, and they lost both of them. Pretty convincingly, too. I mean, that Oregon game was a good, solid game, but it wasn't all that. It wasn't I never thought Oregon wasn't going to win that whole entire time. Same with the Ohio State-Penn State game. I never was sitting there thinking Ohio State's going to lose this besides for the first 3 minutes of the game. But after the first 3 minutes of the game and we scored our first touchdown, I was like, okay, yeah, we're winning this game. We're just a better team. Same with Oregon. Oregon was clearly the better team. They got out early, and Oregon's defense is impossibly bad. We let Penn State score 6 points on us, and Oregon let Penn State score, what was it, 30? Something like that?
31,
so,
I believe.
Yeah, so what
31.
Hey.
37. It was 45, 30, 42, 37 or something like that.
Yeah, so, I think it's dumb because I'm all about not weighting the games too heavily because I understand the challenges of them. But I think at the end of the day, you have to really – if you don't play a team, it should mean more. That's what I'm saying. If you play a whole schedule like Georgia, for example, Georgia, that would have been their third loss. And I don't think Georgia should drop behind Bama because that was their third loss, and that would have been Bama's third loss. I'm like, no, because Georgia played 7 other top 10, 15 teams throughout the season. But teams like Penn State and Texas has 0 ranked wins. 0 ranked wins. Yeah. What a joke. But hey, at least they set a precedent, and that's the precedent they better keep, not just this year and not just next year, but for the whole entire time. Because I remember Georgia last year losing the conference championship and being kicked out completely. So to me, that just doesn't make any sense. You can't be punishing some teams some years. So we got to keep it consistent. and I want it to be consistent for the whole entire time now. I want so next time Ohio State's in the conference championship game and we play whatever Oregon or whoever, and when we hypothetically lose it, I don't want our ranking to move one bit. I want us to stay exactly where we are because Texas didn't move one bit, and they lost to Georgia's backup quarterback, and they have 0 ranked wins. So whatever. But that's my rant. I think it's I still think it's dumb, but at least they're consistent. I'm glad to see Bama not in the playoffs. And at the end of the day, we have to win 4 games, V. Moses. So does it really matter who we play? I mean, does it? At the end of the day, we saw last week we were 20-point favorites over Michigan and we lost. And we saw other weeks where we were 3 points favorites over Penn State and we handled that game way better. So
it's college football, man.
It's college football at the end of the day. So we get a home game. If we can't beat Tennessee in the first game, then we ain't beating anyone else. So we've got to take this one game at a time and really, really just hone in and play our best football. Because at the end of the day, we're going to be favorites, or at least I don't think Oregon going to be favorites over us. I think it might be pick'em, or maybe Oregon -1. But Ohio State's going to be pretty much 50-50 to win every single game from here on out. So, and there's frankly no impressive teams. Seriously, Georgia looked horrible. Talk about embarrassing. Sorry, but and then Texas looked horrible. Oregon's good, but we know we can compete with Oregon. So we already did it, so we can just do it again. And Penn State clearly are frauds. Penn State's the most fraudulent team they're the same Penn State team. It's the same team every year, and it's kind of embarrassing for them. Their fan base was so happy today, B. Moses, because they had one path to the Final Four. They had one single path, and it was to get this side of the bracket. And they got it. So cheers to them. Cheers to that fan base. There's no other fan base in the world that rather play SMU and whoever they play, Boise State. They play SMU and Boise State. So they're so happy because they know if they ran into Tennessee, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Tennessee, or whatever, Georgia, they would lose. And they know that. Everyone in the world knows that. So cheers to Penn State. They got a free trip to the Final Four where they'll be two touchdown underdogs and probably lose by 3. So,
yeah, absolutely. It's pretty simple. Focus on beating Tennessee. So real quick, I see the comments. I see the chat. I understand people are still upset. People, are basically have zero confidence in winning anything after last week's game. And I completely understand that. I have watched the game several times now. I'm a glutton for punishment. Several times, from the all 22 film to the TV copy to film breakdowns, all of that. So I am well informed on the game, and I'm going to quickly as possible give you my thoughts and insight on what I saw on film, not what my emotions said, or not what my saltiness said, or my my butt hurt from being disappointed, which I was and am with this team and this coaching staff. I'm going to tell you what I saw on the actual tape, and give you some reasons why I believe we still have a chance to actually win, to beat Tennessee. But I'm gonna get to that in a second. But real quick, you mentioned the whole SMU and Bama stuff. I thought that was very interesting because, a lot of people who lean more towards the the big brands, the powers that be, if they're always going to win out. Well, they didn't win out this time. Bama is clearly a better draw eyeball wise than SMU, and the committee did not put them in, and they could have put them in and made an argument. And people would just have to deal with it, but they didn't. So I thought that was interesting too. Now, were you cool with that, Funky? Real quick, and then I'm gonna hit on what I just mentioned. But were you cool with that? I
would not have done it because I had a funny phone call this morning with a guy really high up there, sports media world, or a huge show. He called me and he's wanting to talk about the thing, and the one thing he brought up was he says we need to stop playing. He claimed kabuki theater. And we need to stop acting like SMU is as good as Alabama. Let's stop this nonsense. We all know what would happen if SMU played Alabama. SMU clearly, to me, doesn't deserve it at all. People can say whatever they want. SMU has 0 top 25 wins. They've lost to their 2 only ranked opponents. They didn't look great yesterday. It took a miracle comeback to lose to a Clemson team that frankly isn't all that good. We can look at Clemson's non-con where they got stomped by Georgia, or Clemson's other games where they just didn't look great. And Clemson's not a really great team. That's just a fact. Right. Then Bama, on the other hand, they beat Georgia. I get Bama lost embarrassingly, but hey, a loss at Oklahoma is not that much worse to me than a neutral site loss to Clemson or a loss versus BYU. So, I mean, we can say all we want, but I think the committee, personally, I think the committee should have put in Alabama at the 11 seed, moved Ohio State up to the 6 seed, maybe Texas in front of us, maybe. But I still think Texas should have been the 7 seed, and then Penn State should have been the 8 seed. So that's personally what I would do, because I think you need to value the conference championship games to the extent if you don't play anyone. If you play teams before then they'll be weighted less, because that's just how math works.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I think because the fact that SMU has 0 ranked wins and Bama has ranked wins, and I know their losses are kind of embarrassing, but let's be real, their losses aren't that much worse than SMU's losses. So not that much. I think they're worse, but I think Bama's wins are much more impressive than SMU's wins, or because SMU doesn't have any wins. So I really think you need to value wins, because if you don't value wins, then teams are going to stop scheduling teams. Like Ohio State. Ohio State should
that's what Saban said earlier too.
Yeah, we should never schedule a good out of conference. It's a joke. We should cancel our series of Texas. We should cancel it with Georgia. There's no reason to play these games. They're useless games. They can only hurt you, and that's shown by the committee, because the committee has clearly shown that they value the conference, making the conference championship game a lot, and they value your ranking. Well, how much wins and losses you have. How much losses you have is going to affect your ranking. That's what they've shown us. But it just doesn't make sense to me, because they clearly don't care about the eye test either, B. Moses, because Texas has 2 losses, including one in the conference championship game, 0 ranked wins. You know who also has 0 ranked wins and 1 loss? Indiana. So why is Indiana not ranked in front of Texas? Indiana's looked really impressive. Indiana has looked, they have the biggest win margin in the whole entire college football. They've clearly handled their schedule well. So we're just going to ignore the schedule, ignore who they played, ignore who they beat in. Then Indiana should be ranked ahead of Ohio State and Texas, because clearly head-to-head also doesn't matter. So this is just preseason stuff that's going in, and I guarantee you, though, if SMU would have lost by 10 or something, then this whole ranking would have changed. But I think they took to the point where they realized that they couldn't justify it to themselves, SMU over Bama, so they had to just put everything else in place as well. Because, Penn State pretty much, they really got blown out. Like, if you watch, I watched the game, and it was just they converted the 4th and 10 to make it a 2-touchdown game late. But in reality, they really weren't they couldn't stop Oregon. It was whatever. And that Georgia-Texas game was a joke. Texas lost to a backup quarterback. God, I could only imagine if Ohio State would have lost to a backup quarterback. Lord. But it's whatever. But I don't agree with it, but at least they're consistent, and I can give them credit for that. They're consistent, fair enough. That's the only thing I can really say. They better keep it the same next year, though, because eventually Ohio State's going to lose in the conference championship game, and we better not be screwed over at all. We better not move at all, 0. We better at max 1 spot. If we're ranked 1 and the other team that beat us is ranked 2, then they better just flip. That's the only thing they better change. So that's what I'll say.
I agree. 5WI5H. I don't know how to say that. This song is available on all streaming platforms, everything. So you definitely can get it for your tailgate. Real quick, be wit in the comments. I will answer your question. Send a super chat, and I will answer that. I will gladly answer that about Buckeye Scoop and the hammer and all that other stuff. I will gladly answer that, but shoot a super chat, and I will. So real quick, so I'm going to try to make this brief as possible, as thorough as possible. So before I get started, because I want y'all to get this in the chat, put the number of times you believe, for those who didn't rewatch the game, put the number of times you believe that we ran up the middle in the first half. Just straight up the middle, right at Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. Put the number of times you believe, just that your guess is off the top of the head. But so here we go. So rewatching the game, there was some narratives that I heard after the game from majority of our fan base that I was surprised, oh yeah, that's not true. The game plan was to come out and just slam it up the middle to prove how tough we were. Well, the film shows otherwise. We came out in the first series and threw the ball 6 times and only ran the ball 3 times. Okay, that's the first thing. We actually did that, in the second and third series. We were more pass heavy in this game in general. which walking away from it and hearing the narratives, you think we ran the ball 100 times, but that's just not the case. So let me see. Is anybody commenting in the chat? Yeah, let me see what y'all's guesses are before I go on. Is anybody commenting? Okay, 7. Okay, 6 to 8, 10, 19, 69. That is hilarious. Somebody, Chris Lusher says 69. That is funny. So look, the totals for the first half, we threw the ball 21 times. We ran up the middle 3 times. And the runs on the edge were 9 times. So we hit perimeter runs majority of the time in the first half. So I'm going to tell y'all what I saw as far as the blame. There's a slice of blame pie goes to, it was a collaborative effort, okay? It wasn't just the coaches. It wasn't just the players. It wasn't just this person. It was a collaborative effort. Okay, so first of all, the notion that we slammed it up the middle a gajillion times in this game is false. That's just not true. The game plan is what you come out with. What you see the team come out with, that is the game plan. The game plan was to do what me and other podcasters and other people said we should do, which is sling it around. And then also primarily run on the edges. That's actually what we did, y'all. The game plan wasn't to slam it up the middle. Just to get that out there. All right. Here's the problem. The O-line, I really believe the injuries of the O-line, with the third O-line shuffle that we've had this year, we've lost 3 starters, y'all, by the way. Listen, I've been watching Buckeye football since I could breathe. This is the most hit that an O-line for Ohio State has ever been. Y'all can say it's an excuse. You can say whatever you want. It's the truth. It's a fact, though. 3 starters. 1 is a first-round pick and Josh Simmons. Seth McLaughlin shooting up draft boards. Really, really good player. And then we lost Mikowski, left tackle. He's a starter, not great, but he's another body and all that other stuff. The point is this. I think the O-line injuries really came to a head in the sense that Hinsman sliding back to center with not having as many reps as he would have had last year, on top of the other shifts, just really, reared its ugly head on Saturday versus the team up north. Because here's the thing. It wasn't just about Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham bullying our guys. If you watch the film, that really wasn't the prevailing issue. The issue was, if you go back and watch, they weren't getting to the second level on blocks, on combination blocks. It was clunky. It was off. Guys, Hinsman was standing around not blocking people. When he was supposed to block certain people, there was confusion. Tegra Shabola was awful. He was really bad. So what we saw primarily edge runs. We saw stretch, zone blocking schemes, okay? And they were failing miserably to block their assignments. That's number 1, okay? So there's that. On top of that, Will Howard picked the worst time to have his worst game. That interception on the second series at our own 3-yard line was a backbreaker. That gave them their only touchdown. Our defense played phenomenal. They didn't give up much, but that interception set them up for a TD. So Will Howard had trouble seeing the field all game. Go look at the film. He just, and some people say, well, after he got his bell rung, maybe he wasn't playing well. I don't know. I'm not hearing that he was concussed, but I am hearing that he was hurt. It hasn't been disclosed totally, but the point is, either way, he had a bad game. All right, so there's that. And I'll circle back to that in a minute. On top of that, special teams failed us. Not only the 2 missed field goals, which should have been chip shot field goals, 35 and 38, I believe. Those are field goals you should make. Scum made their 54-yard field goal. So, again, like we said last week, fielding has made us nervous this whole year. And that came to a head because 2 field goals, those 2 field goals, we make them, we win that game, most likely, in my opinion, in a close game where their offense really couldn't do much besides taking an interception gift for a touchdown. Our punter was bad. We didn't punt well. Henderson and Caleb Downs with some mistakes on special teams as well. And then lastly, Chip Kelly in the booth calling plays. You can say in conjunction with Ryan Day because he's on the headset, but miss me with this notion that, because Ryan Day is the whipping boy right now, that he just morphed up into the booth and started calling plays. He's not calling the plays. Okay, Chip Kelly is the one that's calling the plays. Ryan Day he's on the headset and say, okay, but he has to trust Chip's eyes and what he's trying to build and what he's trying to do. Now, ultimately, it all goes back on the head coach, a loss, a win, whatever. So blame Ryan Day for his piece of the pie, but Chip Kelly was up there calling plays. And yes, Chip Kelly tried a bunch of different things, run schemes and different things to see what would work, but it just wasn't good enough. There were things he could have went back to that he didn't. There were points like middle of the field was open throughout the game. He didn't hit it enough. You know what I'm saying? So it's up to him. He gets paid the big bucks to figure it out. Even though your O-line is struggling, your quarterback is struggling, that is very tough for a play caller. But you got to figure it out. You got to go back to some things that worked, and he didn't do that enough. So he takes some blame. The coaching staff as a whole takes some blame. Justin Fry takes blame for not having these players, even though it's tough without as many reps, being in a new position. Justin Fry has to have them more prepared than that. Now, I'll say this last thing, and then I'll let you jump in, Funk. In the second half, we did remember those two big runs? Judkins had a run for almost 20 yards, and Henderson had a run for like 7 or 8 yards, and we started, like the run game was starting to open up, it felt like. Those were gap scheme. Okay, we kind of went away from the zone, and we ran some gap scheme trap type stuff, and it was working. The O-line looked like they knew what they were doing, and magically holes started opening up. So I'm going to get back to that in a minute as far as playing against Tennessee. But I just wanted to quickly as possible. I know that was long, but I had to get that out there. That's what I saw on film, y'all. That's pretty much a summary of why we lost the game. And it's frustrating. It's disappointing. There's no excuses. But that's what I saw on tape. Go ahead, Funk.
Yeah, talking about the game just makes me nauseous, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's just a mix of what happens when you don't focus on special teams, miss your kicks. Will Howard plays objectively his worst game maybe of his whole career. I for sure at Ohio State, and arguably his whole career. Definitely here. A mix of poor coaching of the offensive line and Chip Kelly not calling his best game is what happens. And Justin Fry will be fired. That just seemed, I've not told that. I have no information on that. But he's on the chopping block. His recruiting's not been great. Nothing has been really great. We've lost to Michigan. Chip Kelly's not going to be fired. Ryan Day's not going to be fired. Someone's going to have to be fired, and that's just frankly going to be Justin Fry. So, he's going to be, unless we win a natty this year, then he's absolutely going to be fired. But on a positive end, I was just looking at notifications up. Big time defensive end, former Buckeye commit, Justin Scott. He went to Miami, is in the transfer portal.
What?
So,
Wow.
So talk about, this is the thing about the new portal and the new era. I'm sure Ohio State's high on his list because he would have gone to Ohio State if Miami didn't come in with a bag 2-3 times the size of ours. So he's back in the portal. He's back up for grabs, and it's like recruitment 2.0. And all we did was lose him for a season. So I'm sure some checks are bouncing. Miami's filled with a bunch of guys. Again, you can't buy a super team. So I'm not going to call out any universities. But all I got to say is buying a team has never worked. And in my opinion, it never will work in college football because what are you going to do? Justin Scott probably got paid millions of dollars to go to Miami. And then all of a sudden he transfers 1 year later. So imagine how other teams are going to be. This is going to be a constant pattern. And now all those people who paid his money, all the NIL funds that got him to go to Miami, imagine those kids or those adults or whatever who paid for him. They're going to be pissed. And do you think they're going to want to send another $1 million, $2 million to the university to get some kid from the flip to Miami? No, they won't. So it's all gonna come back to circle one, which is going to be, in general, good for the Buckeyes because we do it right. We pay kids what they properly should get paid. We always stand by that. Are we going to lose some kids due to that? Sure. But end of the day, it's going to come around and it's going to work out for the best. Because there's some teams right now that aren't overpaying. Georgia's not overpaying. Ohio State's not overpaying. And we're just not going to do it. We refuse to do it. And that's going to mean we lose some in-state talent. Maybe we lose some 5 stars. But eventually, it's going to come around. Because it's just not sustainable. It's not going to work. It never will work. Just look at Texas A&M. They literally had the best class of all time. They had multiple 5 stars on the offensive line, tons of 5 stars on the defensive line, 5-star quarterback, all these weapons, and they did absolutely nothing. They're unranked 3-4 years later. Those guys, junior, senior years, unranked. So that's what I'll say. And also to talk about transfer portal news, big time offensive line, forgetting his name, but Northwestern kid, he had like 38 starts at Northwestern, all Big Ten, player. Great player. He's taking an official visit for the Ohio State game at night. So we're gonna get all of our top transfer portal targets at the Columbus in the Horseshoe on official visits for an 8 p.m. start game versus Tennessee. So I mean, talk about what could be a total swing of momentum. We can get all these guys on campus. We can beat Tennessee, get these kids on boat, and all of a sudden we have a good offense line for next year. Because that's my biggest worry right now, and it should be most people's biggest worries. Because defensive line will be fine. We've seen the talent step up already. But the offensive line, I mean, hey, we have to have some concerns, and they do have concerns, and that's why they're going to go out there and fix it, just like they did this year. Just unfortunate that obviously Seth goes down with ACL. While moving his TV or whatever the heck he was doing. Yeah, so that's some positive news. I try not to talk about the game, but very, very excited to get all these guys on campus. And I think the Buckeyes are going to start getting hot soon. So the negativity, just leaving the negativity behind and just going onward is the only way we can go. Because at this time, we've always said before, or we never agreed to this, but most of the fan base on Buckeye Scoop, on Twitter, on whatever, was like, it's natty or bust for the Buckeyes. It's natty or bust for the Buckeyes. And now people are calling the season a failure, but they called it a natty or bust before, so it doesn't really make any sense. So everything we have is in front of us. We win the next 4 games, and we go down as the most deserving champions of all time. Because we'd play. You know how many top 9 matchups we would have all year, B. Moses, if we run the table, win the natty? Yeah,
6,
7.
Yeah,
we'd have seven matchups versus top 9 opponents, and not top 9 at the time, not top 9 week 1 and week 2 in the AP poll. I mean, top 9 ranked at the end of the year. There are going to be 6 teams we played. It'd be Oregon twice that we've played that are currently ranked in the top 9. So that's frankly impossible. That means we played 6 out of the top 8 other teams. So the only 2 teams we would avoid are like Notre Dame and Notre Dame and some other team that we would miss out on. So we pretty much played. We're going to end up playing one of the hardest schedules of all time. So if we do it, so be it. If we don't do it, then people are going to be upset anyways. So that's how I'm looking at it. If we lose to Tennessee, then all of a sudden the Michigan game doesn't sting as much because the Tennessee game feels like the end of the world. So all I'm focused on is the next game. Let's beat Tennessee. Let's beat Oregon. If we somehow win the Natty this year, B. Moses, I don't even know what I would say, because we're literally going through four giants the next 4 weeks. It's going to be rough, but hey, I think the Buckeyes can do it, but it's just, I'd be a fool to say I'm sure of it,
No, of course not. And somebody asked earlier in the chat, like, what's the massive news you guys are saying? Well, that's the lineman from Northwestern visiting is massive indeed. He's a great player. We need linemen next year. People complain about us not recruiting linemen. Maybe some of that is valid. I think it's a little overblown, as if we just don't recruit linemen. Of course we recruit linemen. David Sanders, the David Sanders of the world, like Funky said earlier, overpaying and overgiving and all this other stuff, it's an issue. But yes, it's massive because we need that kid. We need linemen next year. If Simmons sticks and goes to the NFL draft, I'm saying sticks because there's a word that they're trying to get him to stay. That's why I said that, Funky. I saw something earlier that they're trying to convince him to stay. But if he's gone, we absolutely need linemen. So it is massive. Also, Stephen Chair, you said laugh out loud, stop B. Stop what? Tell me what I said that was false. You might not agree with my opinion, but stop what? Be specific. Also, real quick, you said, as far as us winning this game. So just to get back to what I was saying about what I saw on film. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple things. Number one, yes, we were dumb and we were goofy. It was terrible execution from our players. Let's just be honest. And then our coaching staff not stepping up and doing what they needed to do to right the wrong and do what we needed to do to get over the hump in the game. It was a collaborative effort, like I said. I know it's easy to say, oh, fire day and it's only the coaches. No, it was the players too. They didn't play well. It was a group effort. So with that said, when I was talking about how they found some success with more gap scheme stuff and less zone stuff. Well, going forward, then you lean more on that. You lean more on the gap scheme stuff that you see is working. Not only that, you have 3 weeks of reps of them watching film of what they did wrong against Scum, and they can clean that up with reps. We've seen in bowl prep over the years how a team comes out looking better and players are playing better because they just got 3 weeks of this straight practicing, reps, as opposed to preparing for opponents from week to week to week. So to me, the pathway for us to win this game is for us to, number one, learn from the film. Obviously, got to coach better, see the mistakes, see what Scum was doing, and rep our O-line so they can be better. Will Howard has to be better. Like, he doesn't even have to be Heisman level. He just can't do what he did against Scum, which was not see the field, force things, make terrible decisions, and all that. He can't do that. So I know it feels disgusting, like we just can never win another game, but this is college football, and Ohio State typically doesn't get embarrassed back to back. They usually play better the next game after they lose or even after they struggle. That's our MO. So we're at home at night. And I'll say this real quick because Tennessee fans are saying it gets cold in Tennessee. Listen, Columbus, Ohio cold is not the same as Tennessee cold. I looked it up earlier. The average temperature in December is 42 degrees in Knoxville, Tennessee. The average temperature in December in Columbus, Ohio is 34 degrees. Now, I was in that stadium last week. It was cold. It was freezing. 19 degrees before kickoff and in the 20s. It was cold. And it's colder in that bowl, in that stadium, and the wind gusting and the chill. It's colder, I'm telling you. And then at night in December, the average temperature in Columbus, Ohio is 27 degrees. So, yes, 40 degrees in Tennessee. That's a nice, cool, great football day. But that's a little different on the road at night in the shoe, potentially in the 20s. So I'm not saying that's the end all be all. The weather's just going to win us the game. So don't pump your brakes, folks, trolls and whoever. I'm saying that the weather is something Tennessee is not used to. We're used to playing in that at the end of November in the Midwest, in the Big Ten. They're not. So watch out for that. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead, Funk.
I mean, how I'm looking at this game is if we lose to Tennessee at home at 8 p.m. start, then we don't deserve anything, B. Moses, because Tennessee ain't that.
Agreed.
I mean, they're not that good. I mean, they're don't get me wrong. I think they're a very good team. I think they're the hardest matchup that we could possibly be against. Like, if we're going through like the teams we could have possibly been playing, I think they're by far the hardest matchup we could have gone. I think they have some very positive. They have a good D line, one really great player on the defensive line. I'm forgetting his name, but defensive end. But at the end of the day, we still match up well against them. They're very Penn State like, where they very inconsistent quarterback play, good solid run game, good dominant pass rusher, and decent secondary. But you look what Georgia did against them. You look what every time Tennessee's gone on the road, they've looked kind of crap. So if they can go into the Horseshoe at 8 p.m. start time and beat us, I mean, you need to beat us in the Horseshoe at night. You have to be whatever, Baker Mayfield Heisman Trophy winner, or I'm so young. But what's that quarterback's name for Texas
right now?
No, Vince Young. You have to be Vince Young.
Okay.
You have to be Vince Young or Baker Mayfield. Because it's just hard to win in Columbus, especially at night, and especially if you're an SEC team. So if we lose to them, then I'm just kind of looking at it as like we are going to get smacked by Oregon the next week. Then do I think we're going to lose? Absolutely not. I think our offensive line plays better when we don't, because Mason Graham is better. What you have to realize is Mason Graham is so dominant, B. Moses. He's way more dominant than any edge rusher could be, because he completely stopped our inside game and even outside game and the pass rush. And it's not just him either. I mean, their second and third best defensive linemen are pretty damn good. So Tennessee's defensive line is not as good. Their defense overall is slightly better, but I just want to see us get our best players in open space, run the read option well, run the quarterback, and I want to get JJ Smith the ball as much time as possible, because They have no guys on their team that can guard J.J. Smith. Their secondary is very average. I mean, it'll be the worst secondary face in the playoffs. So their secondary is the worst secondary we'll face in the playoffs. Nico's the worst quarterback we'll face in the playoffs, and their offensive line ain't all that. So if we lose to them, then we literally, I mean, we just don't deserve anything. That's what I'll say.
And I agree. And we need to see what Scum was doing. And I'm reading this chat. I mean, it's just whatever, whatever. But I'll say this: we need to have a plan for if they mimic Scum. I don't know if y'all saw this, but what Scum was doing is they had too high safety the whole game. They were rolling over a safety almost every time on JJ. Okay. And most of the time it was well, not most of the time, all the time it was post snap. So as soon as the ball snapped, he would roll over. So sometimes it would look like it was man on man or man to man coverage, isolated one on one, but it hardly ever was it. Hardly ever was, I should say. And the times that it wasn't, we did throw it up. We got 2 PI calls from it when we threw it up to him. We got a touchdown and a couple of incompletes, but they were bracketing JJ almost constantly. So if Tennessee's going to watch film, if they mimic that, we need to have a better plan to get them up out of that. Now, obviously, running the ball better is key. That is the plan right there. If we can execute running the ball better, then that opens more things up, because obviously if you're one-dimensional, you don't have to bring extra help down in the box, which means you're more vulnerable in the back end, football 101, right? So we need to do that. So real quick, I keep seeing in the chat, y'all talking about, we have no chance. Listen, y'all keep saying, if we couldn't beat a 6-5 Michigan team, it doesn't work like that. Have y'all not watched college football? Listen, we may lose, but this notion that because we lost to this team means we're going to lose to this team, that's just not how college football works. Go look at this entire season of teams losing to lesser teams and then turn around and beating a better team. It's college football. That's what happens. So, yes, what happened last Saturday was trash. It was unforgivable. It was terrible. But that doesn't equal that we have no chance against Tennessee, especially with the talent that we have. Also, one other thing I keep seeing y'all say, well, it's on the coaches to get them prepared, so it's on the coaches. I understand that. I could have swore I summarized it with spreading the blame out, because, again, as a coaching staff, you can look good in practice all week. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure they look good. The scheme they ran looked good. It was on point. But then when the bullets start flying in the stadium, guys weren't executing. Let's not act like players just don't execute when they were actually executing during practice. So, yes, it's ultimately on the coaches. They get their blame. However, our players have to play better, period. It's both. It's both and. You feel me? If we can do that, and again, what gives me hope, because my confidence is hit. I'm not sitting here acting like, oh, yeah, we're going to win everything. No, I want to see it. But what gives me hope is that what I saw on film is fixable. It wasn't that it was like Tecmo Bowl. We was just pull, getting knocked back 5 yards every time. It was execution and assignment issues. If they can simply get that fixed and know who they're supposed to block when we run something, then we have a chance with our skill players to actually move the ball and score points. So there you go.
So B Moses, I have a question for you. I was thinking about this. I just want to see.
We got to get to the super chats in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, bro.
Oh, quick. Out of all the defensive players we played all year in our let's just say our 2 losses versus Oregon and versus Michigan, who do you name the best defensive player in each one of those teams? I'm just wondering, versus Ohio State, just watching the games, if you had to pick one player out on each one of those teams, who would you say was the person who beat us? Like he's the guy who led that defense.
On Scum, it was a combination of Mason Graham and I want to say Makari Page, because he had a pick and he had a nice hit on Howard, which affected him. So, you can argue Kenneth Grant, but I would say those two. And then who was the other? You said Oregon?
Oregon, yeah.
Their D end. Birch didn't play. It was I thought it was one of their D ends that was pretty disruptive.
There's two guys. It was I'm gonna butcher his name. The Clemson's quarterback's brother transferred.
Ugalele or whatever. Yeah.
And then that big defensive interior guy, Derek Armin for transfer from Michigan State to Oregon. My point is, we've really struggled against those big defensive tackles in the middle all year. I mean, just looking back at it, like we've really, really struggled against them. Because we didn't really struggle much against Penn State, even though Penn State is arguably a better defensive line than any team we placed all year. And I really think that's because of just we're not strong in the middle because of our best middle guys had to get kicked out to the left tackles. So, and Tennessee, where my point is, Tennessee doesn't have a big guy like that in the middle. They have some elite edge rushers, some elite linebacker rushers, some very good run defense, but overall they've struggled a lot with like inside gap schemes and then the play action pass off that over the top. So I think Ohio State's matchup is better than what people think. But still, I mean, Tennessee's obviously a good team, but we're going to be a touchdown favorite going into that game. So I mean, if we lose by touchdown favorite at home at night, then yeah, we don't deserve it. So that's my points. But let's get into the super chats.
Yep, definitely. And definitely catching up with the chat and everything y'all saying. Listen, I get it, man. I get it. I'm not sitting here acting like I'm just supremely confident, but I'm not gonna act like I ain't never watched college football before either. Like I don't have any point of reference. I know it seems like the world is over and it sucks really, really badly, but I just can't, not refer to what we know. And so this notion that we have zero shot to win this game, I just don't agree with that. But to each his own. Let me get to the super chats. All right. Studley Butley, did you guys see Day said Montgomery and Padilla are in the mix to play? Who's out? If so, yes, I did. I did see that. And the press conference during the on signing day earlier this week, he mentioned that. He mentioned that they were going to reevaluate and, see if there's a better combination for the line because they struggled. Like I said, they struggled. So I did hear that. Who's out? Maybe Saraveld might be the first man out. I don't know if Padilla could play center. I don't know. I haven't heard any specifics about that. Funky, did you have any insight on that or not?
I mean, just from what I've heard by Kirk from Nevada they do this every game. Every time especially after a loss, they sit down there and they say, who's up? Who's next man up? Kirk didn't start most of his sophomore or his his redshirt freshman year. Sorry. But I think 6 games in, they were struggling. Things after a loss, they put Kirk in and he started from there and out. So, I mean, they're always looking to replace kids. They're always going to continue to look to replace kids. But it's just a matter of next man up. I don't think they'll make any switches from what I've heard. But they're always going to. I mean, Tigro would be the man out because they're not going to move Carson because no one else who can play center. So I think they would have to move Tigra. And I really like Luke Montgomery, so I think he should be playing already. But we'll see. They're the coaches. They're the ones to make that decision. And
Right.
Just like before the Penn State game, where everyone was so worried, the one thing I said is they're the coaches. They're the ones who make the decision. They know what's best for the team because I mean they know these kids better than anyone else we do. But yeah.
Yep, got you. All right. So Maurice Clarinet, thanks for the 5. No Michigan win, no Big Ten title. At this point, is the season an abject failure if we don't win the Natty? Yes. That's my answer. It is. With all the expectations, all these guys coming back, and you don't hit none of your goals, yes. A 3-loss season with this talent, yes, it's a failure. Funk, any response to that?
Yep. I'd say pretty much the only way you could possibly convince me, if not, is if we beat Tennessee, Oregon, and Texas, and then lose to Georgia and Atlanta. If we got to the Natty, then I could be like, okay, and we just beat Texas, Oregon in there. But if we just beat Tennessee and lose to Oregon, then yeah, we would have to at least beat Tennessee and Oregon for me to look at the season at all like a success. Okay. But if we lose before pretty much if we lose before the Texas game, then it's for sure failure. If we win the Texas game, then I could be like, I'll be here convincing y'all it's not a failure. But if we lose before that, especially lose the Tennessee game, then it's a total failure, and there needs to be immediate change because that should never happen at Ohio State.
Yep, that's fair. Agreed. All right. Maurice Clarinet with another 2. Thank you. Do you think next year's team will be better? I have no idea, bro.
It depends on Julian saying.
I've got nothing right now. Honestly, it's just we just don't know with the transfer portal and just with who's going, who's whatever. It's just hard to say that right now. I think we could possibly be more efficient and better at quarterback with a higher end talent like Julian saying, or and Aaron Nolan or whoever, I think it's going to be Sam. I'm just naming the quarterbacks, but I don't know, bro. What you think, Funk?
I totally agree. If I had to bet on it, I'd say we'd be a little worse because our defense this year is, scary good defensively. It's just we're struggling finding offensive efficiency. But if we go out there in the portal, and it's really just staying healthy, though, because this year's team would be amazing if we had no injuries in the offensive line. Like, we'd be the number one team in the nation right now because I think we would have revenged the Oregon. But that's just not the case right now. So if you're talking about the team right now, then I can be like, yeah, I think we can be better, but not the team that we had before the year started. That'd be my opinion on it. But who knows? A lot of promise on the defensive line, and we're losing a lot defensively, but we're returning a lot defensively as well with Caleb Downs and other people.
Right.
And then we're going to get Julian Sayin, who's I think is the truth. So, hey, if Julian Sayin's, a Heisman candidate, which he could be, I'm not saying he is, but if he is, then the team will be better. But if he's just an average sophomore like he probably will be, then we'll probably be slightly worse. But, still win 10, 11 games. So,
go ahead. You said
that's just nothing too much to worry about, though. Like, we're not falling off a cliff like Michigan is. We're not going to turn into a 5-5 team next year. But the expectations are for sure not going to be natty or bust. That's what I'll say.
Right. And real quick about the O-line injuries, because I saw somebody else in the chat mention this and talking about, elite teams should hold up with the depth. Come on, man.
No teams in the whole country.
Listen, man, this is not, again, I emphasize what I said about the O-line injuries. This is not just one guy got injured in week 2 and then this has been 3 offensive line shuffles. Okay. 2 key injuries. Arguably your 2 most important, positions on the line, which is left tackle if you have a right-handed quarterback, and the center. Okay, you can only take so much damage and depth hits on a college football team. I don't care who it is. All right, like this, again, this is the most hit our O-line has ever been, ever. You feel me? So no, it's just not that simple. And then when you go against 2 NFL D tackles, you know what I'm saying? Like it's gonna be tough sledding for you. So, again, time, weeks, and reps will help these guys who shuffled this 3rd time. Repetition for these next 3 weeks will help them get better. Thank God they have that. But coming off of that, like only having a week to really prep and switching positions, like that's tough against a good front like that. I don't care what you say. All right, last super chat. Oh, actually, no, there's one more. Anyway,
this is ridiculous.
So arm therapy, I've heard from a recruit at Ryan and culture at OSU was toxic and they blaming everyone. Coaching staff was a mess. Thoughts, go Bucks. So my counter to that is this, okay? Because, there's rumors that fly around all the time. But my counter to that is we just signed a top 5 class. There was a bunch of guys who could have just said, you know what? This culture is toxic. We can't beat the team up north. We stink. This is over with. We're going somewhere else. But a lot of the players that were like wavering or like kind of tempted to leave, like Alford, the linebacker, he stuck around. The D tackle that we got, why is his name escaping me?
Maxwell Roy.
Well, actually, no. I was talking about the other kid from he signed on Wednesday. He announced his name will come back to me. But the point is, there were certain guys that were wavering. Obviously, Naeem Alford's been gone for months. He's been done for months. He's just been stringing along. The point is, we signed a top 5 class full of recruits and their families who said, I'm going to send my son and sign on the dotted line to this program. That speaks volumes over trust on a culture. Yes, I know it sucks right now. It hurts. It sucks. Confidence for the future, it has taken a major blow. But these recruits in this top 5 class seem to believe that they can trust this staff and the culture is not toxic. So that's my pushback to that notion of the rumor that the culture is toxic. You got something, Funk?
Yeah, no, I do have something. I think frankly, that's just wrong. You can look at every single parent who has a kid on Ohio State right now and what they talk about Ryan Day and how they refer to as Ryan Day and all these recruits that talk about Ryan Day. I've never heard one bad thing from a credible source. It's always anonymous sources who say this stuff, but I've never heard one thing from a player, from a coach or from parents of a kid or whatever. They actually stand by Ryan Day. The Armstrong twins mom went out there and was like, But I don't think Ryan Day should be fired because I think they said I think a lot of kids would leave if he got fired in this class and the class before. So I think I think that's wrong. I think they love Ryan Day. There was an argument in the thing, as reported by Nevada earlier this week, that Ryan Day had a little trouble. He stood by his game plan. And some people didn't react well to that compared to others. But that's just Ryan Day not wanting to throw someone else under the bus. I mean, that's kind of the end of the day. What happened is
I agree.
Ryan Day really believed in his team, and he really believed it was the right game plan. And he doesn't want us to go out there and just crap on other people, being like, because that's just not what he wants to do. So there's going to be tension. There's going to be arguments. There's going to be a bunch of other stuff like that. But there's no these recruits, these parents, they love Ryan Day. They're very likable. Ohio State's culture is one of the best cultures in the league. I mean, you can just look around. We have kids. One thing I'll say is look at the Tavian St. Clair commitment. He's born a Buckeye. He went out there in the interview. He said, "I was born. I bleed scarlet and gray. I'm here. This means more than me than just playing football. This is playing football at the Ohio State University, and he wants to come here. He was no NIL, no BS, none of that stuff. He was out there. He publicly said this. He said it to me. He said it to other people. Great kid. He said, if kids want to come here, they want to come to Ohio State. We're not here. We're not going to overpay kids. We're not going to sit here and want to play this NIL game of raising up the money and getting the offered one Jordans. Like, that's not the game we play at Ohio State. We will give you your fair share. We'll give you what you're deserving. And if you want to be here, you want to be here, but we're not going to play these dumb games that some recruits want to play or some transfer portal kids want to play. And so far, that's been very consistent and right. But Day's staying, and kids love Day. Fry, I don't, not so much. I'll say that. So that's why if we don't win the Natty or at least make a huge run, then you could pretty much pencil in Fry being just canned from just vague stuff that I'm hearing. Nothing. I mean, that's just my prediction. I'll say I'll put it in a prediction that Fry is gone if we don't win. At least make the Natty. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Got you. Real quick. Thanks, Jay Moses, for the $1.99. Appreciate it. Maurice Clarinet, what odds would you give us against Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Georgia, respectively? We got to be quick. We only got a few minutes. I don't know. Against Tennessee, I don't know. I think we can win this game. Like someone said in the chat, we're favored by 7. Them coming up here in December at night in the shoe, first playoff game, trying to bounce back, and not go out a loser at home. That's going to be tough sledding for them. That's going to be. We can win that game. We just have to just get our heads out our butts. But I'm not really ready to really answer that question as far as Oregon, Texas, and Georgia. I want to see from week to week how we play and how teams are looking. But I say we can be, if we come to play and don't be dumb and play better than what, play to the level that we're capable of, none of these teams scare me. Okay. It's hard to say that after losing to Michigan like we did. But again, this is college football. That's one game. You can't use that as a broad brush to say that's how everything else is going to go. That's not how college football goes. So I'm not scared of any of these teams. If we come to play, we can beat them.
I totally agree. And one thing I'll say is these other fan bases aren't as confident. I mean, they're not confident. Like if you really look at, you really think a Texas board right now is confident they can win after losing the Georgia's backup quarterback? Hell no, they're not. Do you think Georgia's confident after watching that phenomenal? Hell no, they're not. Do you think Oregon's confident after letting up 31 points to Drew Rowler and Penn State? Heck no, they're not. So that's all I'll say. I'm sure they have more hope than we do because we know our fan base. But that's what I'll say. I think if we play our best football, B. Moses, we should beat every single one of these teams. It's not gonna take a miracle. It's not gonna take anything. It's just gonna take us playing good football.
Exactly. Yasharel, thank you for the $4.99. What's your opinion on Will Howard? We got to be quick. What's your opinion on Will Howard? Do you think he's ready for prime time? He's shown flashes of being ready for prime time. But the problem is he's made too many mistakes. Like Penn State, perfect example. That's a prime time, huge game, big noon, like the prime time game. And he threw a pick 6 to come out in the game. But then he turns around and throws some nice balls and makes some good plays. He's shown flashes of it. Can he bring it together and not make those critical mistakes? That's the question.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, he's our guy, so we'll have to see. But I mean, he's definitely good enough. I mean, we've won a natty with worse. So I mean, who knew Cardell Jones would step up the way he did? So we'll just see what happens. I think he's good enough, but would it shock me if he doesn't like he just like soils himself again? No, that wouldn't at this point wouldn't shock me. So, but he's definitely good enough, and you can watch him. He's been a game time player his whole entire career. He's won at Texas. He's beat TCU in the championship. He's that good TCU team. He beat Indiana, matched up, beat Penn State. So, I mean, he can do it. Just, I guess, at the end of the day, we'll see. We'll see.
Definitely. And yes, in the chat, we are absolutely going after a kicker in the portal. Like, that's a fact. Watch out for that kid, Jesus. I forget his last name.
Gomez.
Gomez. Like, we're lineman and a kicker is absolutely target number one in the portal. Like, this guy coming from Northwestern is not the only kid that we're looking at and going after, but he's probably the biggest name, the best fit for us. So just wanted to say that. So we got to end. Listen, we could have went on a whole nother hour. I'm not going to try to convince anybody to believe anything. If you think we're trash and we have no chance, kudos to you. I understand the pain. It hurts. This sucks. But as for me and my house, I'm going to turn the page and focus on, this Tennessee game and believe that we have enough talent and that this team, this coaching staff, and these players want to win this game and will do what they need to do to win the game. I haven't given up on this team. Am I hurt? Am I crushed? Yes. Am I salty? Yes. Am I disappointed? Yes. But I refuse to believe that this coaching staff and team is not going to try to do whatever they can do to win this game. And they have the talent to do it at home at night. I think we have a shot to win this game. That's all I'm going to say. Funk, any last words before we hop off?
Last words was after we won the national championship in 2014, this feels like we're going into the Wisconsin game this week. Wisconsin's looking good. Good team. We're not sure how Ohio State's going to look. The haters are loud. We're going to our third string quarterback no one believes in. But what needs to happen is we need players, big time players, to show up when it matters most. So this is the big time moments officially. It's win or go home. We don't have to play Michigan, so Ryan Day doesn't have to face his fear for the rest of the year. We've got to win out, play our games. The world's against us, Ohio State against the world. At this point, we have nothing to lose because everyone thinks we're going to lose, and if we lose, then they're right. Sure, we are never going to win because we are never that good. But hey, Ohio State against the world, always will be, still is. I can't wait. Thanks for showing up. Let's press that like button and subscribe to Buckeye Scoop. What a growth we've had even since the Michigan loss. It's been amazing being a part of this group, and it's fun every single Sunday to be with you guys.
Amen. And listen, make sure y'all go to Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music. You know what time it is. B. Moses featuring Curtis Grant and Ron Lyles, man. It's time to push that song again now that we got this playoff matchup. Download it, save it, share it, all that good stuff. I appreciate y'all. And we will talk to y'all next Sunday, man. All right?
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks. Always, regardless. Peace.